"You're not useful anymore, Mom. You just stay in the way." My son said it without looking at me. Not once. The words landed somewhere between the mashed potatoes and the roast chicken I had spent all afternoon preparing. Steam still rose from the plates. The table was set the way it had been for years. White porcelain, folded linen, the silverware his father had polished every Sunday. No one touched the food. I stood there for a second. Maybe two. Then I sat down. I didn't argue. I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't even look at his wife, though I could feel her eyes on me, sharp, satisfied, like she had been waiting for that moment. At the time, I didn't realize what that meant. That was my first mistake. "I'm glad you're here. Stay with me until the end, because what happened next is something I still replay in my head, piece by piece, like a puzzle I should have solved much earlier." The dining room felt different that night. It wasn't the lighting. It wasn't the weather. It was something quieter, colder. The chair at the head of the table, the one my husband used to sit in, was empty. It had been empty for 3 weeks. Long enough for the casseroles to stop arriving. Long enough for the phone calls to slow down. Long enough for people to start showing their true faces. I reached for my glass of water. My hand was steady. That surprised me. "Mom," Daniel said, finally glancing up, "we're just being realistic." Realistic? I nodded once. Slow. Across from him, Melissa dabbed her lips with a napkin. Perfectly composed. She hadn't taken a single bite either. Another detail I didn't understand at the time. "I think," she added, her voice soft but precise, "it might be better if we start making arrangements." Arrangements. The word lingered in the air longer than it should have. I folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate. "What kind of arrangements?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. Daniel exhaled like I had just asked something inconvenient. "You know, downsizing. Maybe a smaller place. Something easier to manage." I looked at him. Really looked. The same boy who used to run down this hallway in socks. The same boy who once cried because he thought thunderstorms meant the sky was breaking. Now he couldn't hold my gaze for more than a second. That should have told me everything. But I was still trying to make sense of it. "I've lived here for 32 years, I said. Melissa smiled. Not warmly. Just politely. "Yes," she said. "But things change. Things change." I nodded again. Slow. Measured. Inside, something shifted. Not broken. Not yet. Just moved. Dinner ended early. No one asked if I wanted dessert. No one mentioned the apple pie cooling in the kitchen, the one Daniel used to beg for every fall. I cleared the table, plate by plate. They didn't offer to help. Another detail. Small. Easy to ignore. But it wasn't. That night I stood at the sink, watching the water run over porcelain. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Upstairs I heard footsteps, a door closing. Then voices. Low. Muffled. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew. They weren't talking about me. Or maybe they were. I dried my hands slowly, turned off the faucet. For a moment I just stood there, listening. At the time I told myself it was normal. A young couple, private conversations. Nothing unusual. That was my second mistake. The next morning, the house felt rearranged. Not physically, not at first, but something was off. Daniel's briefcase wasn't by the door where he always left it. Melissa's shoes perfectly lined up the night before. were gone. The kitchen was already clean. Too clean. I checked the clock. 6:15 a.m. They were early risers, but not that early. I opened the fridge. The leftovers from dinner were gone. All of them. Another small thing. Another piece I didn't yet understand. I poured myself coffee. Black. Sat at the table. Waited. No note. No message. Nothing. I picked up my phone. No missed calls. I set it back down. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I stood up. Walked through the house. Their bedroom door was open. The bed was made. Closet door is slightly ajar. Empty hangers. I paused in the doorway. That was the first moment something felt. Deliberate. Not rushed. Not accidental. Planned. I should have called Daniel right then. I didn't. Instead, I closed the door. Gently. Like I was afraid of disturbing something that wasn't there anymore. Later that afternoon, he called. "Mom," he said. "We had to step out early. Meetings. Meetings. Plural." I glanced at the empty driveway. "All day?" I asked. A pause. "Yeah. Something like that. Something like that." I didn't push. "Okay," I said. We hung up. I sat back down at the table. The same table. The same chair. Everything looked exactly the same. But it wasn't. That evening they came home late. Too late for dinner. Melissa walked in first, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She didn't look at me. Daniel followed, loosening his tie. "Long day," he muttered. I nodded. "Dinner's in the oven," I said. Neither of them moved toward the kitchen. "We already ate," Melissa said. Of course they did. Another detail. Another quiet shift. I turned the oven off. Didn't say anything. Didn't ask where. Didn't ask with who. Because part of me already knew I wouldn't like the answer. Days passed like that. Small changes. Subtle. Easy to ignore if you weren't paying attention. They started having more meetings. More private conversations. More time away from the house. And when they were home, they weren't really there. One evening I walked into the living room and stopped. My husband's photo, our wedding photo, was gone from the mantel. I stood there for a long time, looking at the empty space where it had been. "Melissa moved some things around," Daniel said from behind me. I hadn't heard him come in. "More modern," he added. "More modern." I nodded. Of course. I didn't ask where the photo was. I didn't need to. At the time, I told myself it was just redecorating. Just taste. Just preference. That was my third mistake. A few nights later, I woke up thirsty. The house was dark. Quiet. I walked downstairs slowly, careful not to make noise. Halfway down the hallway, I stopped. Voices. From the kitchen. Daniel and Melissa. She doesn't even know," Melissa was saying. A pause. Then Daniel. "Just give it time." Time. "For what?" Melissa whispered. I leaned slightly closer, my hand resting against the wall. For everything to be finalized," he said. Finalized. The word echoed. Loud. Clear. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. "What if she refuses?" Melissa asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Then Daniel laughed. Soft. Dismissive. "She won't." I stepped back. Quiet. Careful. Went upstairs. Closed my door. Sat on the edge of the bed. Finalized. Refuses. Time. The words circled in my head. Over and over. At the time, I didn't know exactly what they meant. But I knew one thing. They weren't talking about dinner, or furniture, or anything small. I lay down, stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling I had looked at for decades. The same room I had shared with my husband. Everything felt familiar and completely different. I didn't cry. I didn't confront them. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. Because something told me, if I asked too soon, I wouldn't like the answers. And that night, for the first time, I realized I wasn't just being pushed aside. I was being moved. Quietly. Carefully. Like something that no longer belonged. I closed my eyes and made a decision. I wouldn't say anything. Not yet.
I noticed the envelope before I noticed what was missing. It was sitting on the kitchen counter. Plain, white, no stamp. Just my name. Handwritten. Not Daniel's handwriting. Not Melissa's either. I stood there for a moment, coffee cooling in my hand, looking at it like it didn't belong in my house. Because it didn't. At the time, I didn't open it right away. That was intentional. Instead, I walked past it, slowly, set my cup down, turned on the sink, let the water run. Sometimes, when something doesn't make sense, it's better to wait. At least, that's what I used to believe. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Soft, measured. Melissa. "You got something?" she asked casually. Too casually. I didn't turn around. "Looks like it," I said. A pause. Then, probably junk. Junk. I dried my hands. Turned. She was already looking at the envelope. Not at me. At the envelope. That was the first thing that didn't feel right that morning. "Could be," I said. I picked it up. Her eyes followed the movement. Sharp. Focused. Not curious. Concerned. I slid it into the drawer by the stove. Closed it. Slowly. "I'll check later." Another pause. Then she smiled. "Oh, sure." But the smile didn't reach her eyes. That was when I started paying closer attention. Daniel left early again. No breakfast, no coffee, just a quick "see you later, Mom" from the hallway. He didn't step into the kitchen, didn't ask about the envelope, didn't ask anything. Melissa stayed behind. That was new. She usually left with him. I sat at the table, folded the newspaper, didn't read a word. She moved around the kitchen like she was looking for something, opening cabinets, closing them, too many times. "What are you looking for?" I asked. She froze for half a second, then turned. "Nothing," she said. "Just reorganizing." Reorganizing. At 8 in the morning. I nodded, watched her open the drawer. The wrong one. Then another. Closer. Closer to the stove. To the drawer where I had placed the envelope. At the time, I still told myself it could mean nothing, but it didn't feel like nothing. I stood up, walked past her, opened the drawer, took the envelope out. Her movement stopped. Completely. I'll read it now. No emotion. Just a statement. She forced a small laugh. "Curiosity got the better of you?" Something like that. I didn't respond. I opened it. Inside, just one sheet of paper. No letterhead. No signature. Just a printed line. "Check your bank records before the 15th. That was it. Nothing else. I read it twice, then folded it. Put it back in the envelope. Melissa was watching me. Carefully. "What is it?" she asked. "Nothing important," I said. And that was the first lie I told. The rest of the morning passed quietly. Too quietly. Melissa stayed in the living room, on her phone. Typing. Stopping. Typing again. Every few minutes she would glance toward the kitchen. Toward me. I didn't look back. I sat at the table with my coffee. Untouched. At the time, I didn't know why that message mattered, but something about the way she reacted told me it did.
was when I started thinking about things I hadn't thought about in years. The bank, the accounts, my husband, the way he used to handle everything. Quietly, carefully, always saying, "You don't need to worry about this." I never did. Not until now. By noon, Melissa left. No explanation. No see you later. Just grabbed her keys and walked out. The door closed a little too fast. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. Then I stood up, went to the drawer, took the envelope out again, looked at the message. Before the 15th. Today was the 12th. 3 days. 3 days for what? I folded it again, slid it into my pocket, picked up my purse, and for the first time since the funeral, I left the house without telling anyone. The bank hadn't changed. Same building, same glass doors, same quiet lobby. I walked in, slow, measured, like I had all the time in the world. Inside, it smelled faintly of polished wood and paper. Familiar, comforting, or at least, it used to be. "Good afternoon," the teller said. I nodded. "I need to review my accounts." She smiled. "Professional." "Of course." "ID, please." I handed it over. She typed something. Pause. Typed again. Then looked up. And for just a second, her expression changed. Small. Almost nothing. But I saw it. "Is everything okay?" She hesitated. "Let me get someone to assist you." Assist. Not help. Assist. I nodded. Sat down in one of the chairs by the window. Waited. 5 minutes. Maybe more. A man in a dark suit approached. "Mrs. Carter?" I stood. "Yes." "Would you come with me, please?" "Please." He led me to a small office. Closed the door behind us. Sat across from me. Folded his hands. Too formal. Too careful. That was when I knew. Something wasn't right. "I understand you wanted to review your accounts." "Yes." He nodded. Turned his screen slightly. "Before we proceed, I need to ask, have you authorized any recent changes?" "Changes? What kind of changes?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Access permissions. And transfer structures." I looked at him. Didn't blink. "I haven't changed anything." He nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. That was the moment everything shifted. Not emotionally. Not yet. But logically. Pieces started moving. Fitting together. Daniel's words. Melissa's behavior. The envelope. Before the 15th. "What kind of access?" I asked. He clicked something. Turned the screen fully toward me. "There are 2 additional authorized users listed on your primary account." 2. I didn't need to ask who. But I did. "Names?" He hesitated. "Then Daniel Carter." "Of course." "And Melissa Carter." "Of course." I leaned back in the chair. Slow. Controlled. "And when was this added?" He checked. "Approximately 6 weeks ago." 6 weeks. Before my husband passed. Or right after. I wasn't sure. And that uncertainty, that was the part that bothered me most. "Were there any withdrawals?" I asked. He clicked again. Scrolled. "Yes," he said. My hand stayed still in my lap. "How much?" Another pause. "Several transfers," he said carefully. "Structured. Structured." A word meant to sound harmless. It wasn't. Total, I asked. He looked at me, then back to the screen. Just over $80,000. 80,000. I nodded. Once. Slow. Like I had expected it. Like it meant nothing. But something inside me went very still. Not broken. Not panicked. Just quiet. That was when I remembered something my husband once said. Always read what people assume you won't. At the time, I didn't understand why he said it. Now I did. Can I see the document forms? I asked. The man hesitated again, then nodded. I'll prep them. He stood, left the room. The door closed softly behind him. I sat there, alone, in a quiet office. $80,000. Authorized users. 6 weeks. Melissa watching the envelope. Daniel saying, she won't refuse. Refuse what? That was the question. That was the part I didn't have yet. But I knew. I was getting close. Very close. The man returned. Placed the documents in front of me. Here, he said.
The signature wasn't mine. Not even close. I had signed my name the same way for over 40 years. The same curve on the L, the same pressure on the last stroke. This one hesitated. Just slightly. Enough. I didn't point it out. Not to the man sitting across from me. Not to anyone. I just looked at it. Then at the date. 6 weeks ago. That was the week after my husband's funeral. I remember that week clearly because I hadn't left the house. Not once. I lifted the paper, tilted it toward the light. The ink looked fresh. Too fresh. Do you have a copy of the ID used for this authorization? I asked. The man blinked. No, ma'am. That wouldn't typically be stored with this document. Of course not. That would make things too easy. I nodded, set the paper down, calm, measured. Inside, the pieces were no longer moving. They were locking, one by one. That's all I needed, I said. He looked surprised. Would you like us to reverse? No. Too quickly. I softened it. Not yet. He studied me for a moment, like he was trying to decide if I understood what was happening. I did. Better than he thought. Very well, he said. If anything changes. It will, I replied. I stood, took the envelope, the documents, walked out of the bank. The air outside felt different, colder, sharper, like something had finally come into focus. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I sat in my car, engine off, hands resting in my lap. $80,000, unauthorized access, a forged signature, and 2 names I didn't need to question. Daniel, Melissa. At the time, I could have driven straight back, walked in, placed the papers on the table, asked one question, just one. But I didn't, because something about the timing didn't feel right. Before the 15th, 3 days. No, 2 now. They were waiting for something, and I needed to know what. When I got home, the house was quiet. Again. Too quiet. Melissa's car was in the driveway, but she wasn't in the living room or the kitchen. I set my purse down, listened. Upstairs, a door closed, then silence. I didn't go up. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer, took out the envelope again, looked at the message. Check your bank records before the 15th. Whoever sent it knew, not guessed, knew. That meant one of 2 things. Either someone inside the situation or someone watching it. I folded the paper again, placed it back, exactly where it had been. Then I sat down at the table, waited.
Melissa came downstairs 10 minutes later, her hair slightly out of place, her expression neutral. Too neutral. "You went out," she said. Not a question, a statement. "I did." "Where?" There it was. Direct, controlled. I poured myself a glass of water. Just errands. She didn't move, didn't sit, just stood there, watching me. "You didn't mention it," she said. I looked up. Should I have? A pause. Then she smiled again, that same careful smile. "No," she said. "Of course not." But something in her voice tightened, just slightly. That was when I knew. She didn't just want to know where I went. She needed to know. That evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. Another change. Another piece. He walked straight into the kitchen, loosened his tie, looked at me. Really looked this time. "You went to the bank today?" There it was. No hesitation. No build-up. Just the question. I set my glass down. Carefully. "Yes?" Silence. Melissa stood by the counter. Still. Waiting. "What for?" Daniel asked. I met his eyes. Held them. "For the same reason anyone goes to the bank." A beat. Then, to check my accounts. His jaw tightened. Barely. But I saw it. "And?" he asked. I shrugged. Everything looked interesting. Interesting. The word hung there. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Melissa shifted slightly. Just enough. "What does that mean?" she asked. I turned to her. Smiled. The same way she had earlier. "It means," I said, "I saw things I didn't expect." Silence again. Longer this time. Daniel stepped forward. "Mom, if there's something you're confused about..." "Am I confused?" I asked. Quiet. Calm. He stopped. Mid-step. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Because now, they were the ones adjusting. Not me. "That's not what I meant," he said. Of course it wasn't. I nodded. Took a sip of water. Watched them both. Together. Side by side. Aligned. That part, at least, hadn't changed. "What I'm wondering," I continued, "is why I wasn't told." There it was. Not an accusation. A question. Simple. Clean. Melissa answered first. "We didn't think it would upset you." Upset? I almost smiled. "And would it have?" I asked. She hesitated. Just a fraction too long. "I don't know," she said. Of course she didn't. Because it was never about how I would feel. It was about what they needed. And what they thought they could take. Dinner that night was different. No one mentioned the bank again. No one mentioned the accounts. But everything else shifted. Daniel stayed at the table longer, watched me more closely. Melissa barely touched her food. Her phone sat face down beside her plate. Unusual. Very. At one point it buzzed. She didn't pick it up. That told me more than if she had. I cleared the table, plate by plate. They stayed seated, watching, waiting. For what? That was the question. Later that night I heard it again. Voices. Lower this time. More urgent. "She knows," Melissa whispered. I stood at the top of the stairs. Still. Listening. "No," Daniel said. "She suspects." Suspects. "She went to the bank," Melissa said. "I know." A pause. Then, "We're running out of time." Time. Again. The same word. Different tone. "How much longer?" she asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. That silence. That was the part that mattered. 2 days. He said finally. 2 days. Until the 15th. My hand tightened on the railing. Not visibly. But enough. "What if she blocks it?" Melissa asked. "She won't," Daniel said. Again. The same confidence. The same assumption. "She won't," he repeated. I stepped back. Quiet. Careful. Returned to my room. Closed the door. sat on the edge of the bed. 2 days. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't finished. Not yet. That was their mistake. Because now, I had time too. I reached into my purse, took out the documents from the bank, spread them across the bed, looked at the signature again, the date, the fine print, and then, that small detail, the one I had noticed earlier, the one they hadn't. A clause, buried, almost invisible, but binding. I traced it with my finger. Slow, deliberate. And for the first time since all of this began, I understood exactly what they were trying to do. And more importantly, why it wasn't going to work. I leaned back slightly, closed my eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Clear, focused. I didn't need to confront them. Not yet. Because in 2 days, they were going to do something. Something final. Something irreversible. And when they did, that's when I would step in. Not before. Not during. After. I folded the papers, placed them back in my purse, turned off the light, and lay down in the dark, listening to the silence, counting the hours. Because now, I wasn't the one being moved anymore. I was the one waiting. And in 2 days, everything would be decided.
The last time my husband spoke about the house, he didn't raise his voice. He never did. He was standing by the window, late afternoon light coming through the blinds, papers spread across the dining table. Not messy, organized. Always organized. Everything needs to be clear, he said. I remember I was in the kitchen, drying dishes, listening without looking. Clear for who? I asked. He didn't answer right away. That was his way. Pause first, then truth. For you, he said. At the time, I thought he meant something simple. Bills, utilities, maintenance. I didn't realize. He was preparing for something else entirely. That was years ago. Before Daniel changed. Before Melissa. Before silence replaced conversation. I sat on the edge of the bed, the bank documents still in my hands. The clause was still there. Small. Precise. Hidden in language most people wouldn't read twice. But my husband had made me read everything. Slow down, he used to say. The important part is never at the top. I ran my finger across the line again. The condition wasn't complicated. It just required patience. And timing. Both of which they didn't think I had. That was their fourth mistake. The next morning I woke up before sunrise. Not out of habit. Out of clarity. The house was still. No footsteps. No voices. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. I got dressed slowly. Chose the same sweater I always wore. Nothing new. Nothing noticeable. Routine matters when people are watching. And they were watching. I could feel it now. In the way Melissa paused when I entered a room. In the way Daniel stopped mid-sentence when I walked past. They weren't hiding anymore. Not really. They were waiting. Just like I was. At breakfast, Daniel sat across from me. Coffee untouched. Phone in his hand. Scrolling. But not reading. Melissa stood at the counter. Not eating. Not moving much. Just there. Big day tomorrow, she said. Too casually. I buttered my toast. Didn't look up. What's tomorrow? I asked. A pause. Then Daniel answered. Just paperwork, he said. Paperwork. Of course. What kind? I asked. He hesitated. Only for a second. But it was enough. Estate updates, he said. Just making things easier. Easier. For who? I took a bite. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. That sounds important, I said.
Melissa turned slightly, studying my face, looking for something. A reaction. She didn't find one. Nothing you need to worry about, she added. Of course not. That was the phrase they used when they wanted control. Not discussion. Not permission. Control. After breakfast, they didn't go upstairs. I didn't sit in the living room. I went to the hallway closet, the one we rarely used. Inside, behind a row of old coats, there was a small lockbox. My husband had installed it years ago. Never mentioned it again. Just once, he handed me the key. Keep this somewhere safe, he said. I did. I kept it where no one would look. And now, I took it out. The metal felt cold in my hand. Familiar. I opened the box. Inside were documents, neatly stacked, labeled, property records, account summaries, and one folder, thicker than the rest. I pulled it out, sat on the floor, opened it slowly. Inside, copies of everything, every transfer, every account, every name. My name. Only mine. I turned a page, then another, and there it was. The original structure. The one before any changes. The one my husband had set up. Carefully, deliberately, and protected. I closed the folder, sat there for a moment, breathing evenly, because now I understood something I hadn't before. They weren't trying to take what was already theirs. They were trying to rewrite what was never theirs to begin with. That afternoon, Melissa approached me in the living room. She didn't sit, just stood near the doorway. We have an appointment tomorrow. I looked up from my book. What kind of appointment? Another pause. Then, with the lawyer. Of course. And what do I need to do? I asked. She smiled, relief flickering across her face. Just sign a few documents, she said. Sign. There it was. The word they had been circling around. You've already prepared everything? I asked. Yes, Daniel said from behind her. He had been listening. Of course he had. We made it simple. He added. Simple. That word again. I nodded. Closed my book. Good, I said. Because simple is easy to overlook and easy to control. But only if you don't read. And I read everything. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was worried. Because I was thinking. Replaying every conversation. Every detail. The envelope. The bank. The forged signature. The clause. The lockbox. The plan was clear now. Not fully, but enough. They wanted me to sign. Transfer authority. Finalize control. Before the 15th. Before something triggered. Something they didn't fully understand. That was the part they missed. And that was the part I would use. Around midnight, I got up. Walked downstairs. Quiet. Careful. The house was dark. But the kitchen light was on. Melissa. Sitting at the table. Laptop open. Paper spread out. She didn't hear me at first. I stood in the doorway. Watched. She was reviewing documents. Scrolling. Cross-checking. Nervous. More than before. That was new. What are you working on? I asked. She jumped. Just slightly. Then turned. Oh, she said. Just making sure everything is ready. Ready. For tomorrow? I asked. Yes. Her voice was tighter now. Controlled. But strained. I stepped closer. Looked at the papers. Didn't touch them. Just looked. Legal language. Transfer clauses. Authorization forms. All of this seems thorough, I said. She nodded quickly. We didn't want any mistakes. Mistakes. I almost smiled. You've done a good job, I said. And for the first time, she looked unsure. Just for a second. Like she didn't expect approval. That hesitation, that was important. Because it meant one thing. She wasn't fully confident. Not anymore. The next morning came faster than expected. The 14th. One day before everything changed. Daniel was already dressed when I came downstairs. Suit pressed. Shoes polished. Prepared. Melissa was quieter. Focused. Checking her bag twice. 3 times. No one rushed me. That was intentional. They wanted me calm. Compliant. Predictable. I sat at the table. Finished my coffee. Slowly. Then stood. Ready? Daniel asked. I looked at him. For a long moment. Then nodded. Yes. I said. Because I was. Just not in the way they thought. We drove in silence. The city passed by outside the window. Familiar streets. Unfamiliar destination. The lawyer's office was downtown. Glass building. Clean lines. Professional. Temporary. Because what was about to happen inside wouldn't stay there. It would follow all of us. In the elevator, Melissa adjusted her sleeve. Again. And again. Daniel checked his watch. Twice. No one spoke. No one needed to. The tension was already there. Thick. Unspoken. Waiting. When the doors opened, and we stepped into the office. That was when I realized something. Something they hadn't prepared for. Something they hadn't seen. Because sitting behind that desk wasn't just any lawyer. And the look on his face when he saw me changed everything.
The lawyer didn't stand up when we walked in. He stood up when he saw me. Not Daniel, not Melissa. Me. That was the first thing that didn't match the story they had been building. Mrs. Carter, he said, stepping around the desk. His voice changed slightly on my name. Recognition, not introduction. I stopped walking, just for a second. Daniel didn't notice. Melissa did. Of course she did. Her eyes moved between us, quick, calculating. "You've met before?" she asked, too casually. The lawyer didn't answer her right away. He was still looking at me, measuring something. Or maybe confirming it. "We've spoken," he said finally. Spoken. Not met. Not worked together. Spoken. That word mattered. I nodded once. "Good to see you again," I said. And I meant it, but not in the way they thought. We sat down. Daniel took the chair closest to the desk, Melissa beside him. I sat across, directly facing the lawyer. The table between us felt too clean, too organized, folders aligned, pens placed precisely, prepared, all of it. "This shouldn't take long," Daniel said. His voice was steady, but his fingers tacked once against the table. Just once. That was enough. Melissa opened her folder, sliding a stack of documents forward, carefully arranged, labeled, tabs on the side. She had spent time on this, a lot of time. "Everything has been prepared for a smooth transition," she said. Transition. Another word chosen carefully. I didn't respond. I just looked at the papers, then at the lawyer. He wasn't looking at them. He was watching me. Still. That was the second thing that didn't match. "These documents," Melissa continued, "are standard authorization updates. Standard. Of course. To make sure Daniel can manage everything efficiently going forward. Efficiently." I folded my hands in my lap. Listened. Watched. "Given everything you've been through," she added, softer now, "we thought it would be best to simplify things." Simplify. I nodded. Once. Slow. "Of course," I said. And that was when Daniel relaxed. Just slightly. Enough for me to see it. Enough for the lawyer to see it too. Because his eyes shifted. Not to Daniel. To Melissa. Then back to me.
There was something there, unspoken, but clear. He knew, or at least he suspected. Before we begin, the lawyer said, I'd like to review the documents with Mrs. Carter. Melissa stiffened. Just a fraction. They're very straightforward, she said quickly. I'm sure they are, he replied. Still calm, still polite, but I prefer to go through them personally. A pause, longer than it should have been. Daniel cleared his throat. That's fine, he said. Of course it was. He didn't understand what was happening yet. Melissa did. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the folder, then relaxed. Of course, she said. Again, that same word. But this time, it sounded different. The lawyer turned the first page toward me. Power of attorney. Simple, clear, direct. This would grant Daniel full authority over your financial accounts. Full authority. Not partial. Not limited. Full. I leaned slightly forward, looked at the document, didn't touch it. And this is effective immediately? I asked. Yes, Melissa answered. Too fast. The lawyer glanced at her, then back at me. It would become effective upon signing, he clarified. Precise. Careful. That's what I said, Melissa added. But she hadn't. Not exactly. We moved to the next document. Property transfer agreement, the lawyer said. My eyes stayed on the page. Transfer of ownership of the primary residence. Primary residence. This house. My house. I nodded. Slow. And this is also immediate? I asked. Daniel answered this time. It just simplifies things, Mom. Simplifies. I looked up at him, held his gaze. For who? I asked. A pause. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The room felt smaller now, tighter, like the air had shifted. The lawyer flipped another page. Account consolidation forms. Another layer. Another step. Each document building on the last. Not separate. Connected. Designed. Carefully. That was when it became completely clear. This wasn't just about access or convenience. It was about control. Total. Irreversible. And timed. Before the 15th. Do you have any questions? He was still looking at me. Only me. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached out. Finally. Touched the paper. Felt the texture. Real. Solid. Binding. At the time, they thought this was the moment. The turning point. The signature. But it wasn't. Not yet. I'd like to understand one thing, I said. Quiet. Measured. Of course, he replied. Why now? Silence. Daniel shifted in his seat. Melissa looked at him, then back at me. It's just the right time, she said. Right time. Another phrase. Empty. Carefully chosen. I nodded. As opposed to last month? I asked. Another pause. This one longer. More uncomfortable. Daniel exhaled. Mom, we talked about this. No, I said. Still calm. We didn't. That stopped him. Completely. Because it was true. We hadn't talked. They had decided. And now they were presenting. The lawyer leaned back slightly. Watching. Listening. Not intervening. Not yet. That mattered. Because it meant he was waiting. For something. For me. I just want to make sure, I continued, that everything here reflects my best interests. The phrase hung in the air. Formal. Legal. Deliberate. Melissa nodded quickly. Of course it does. Too quickly. The lawyer didn't nod. He just looked at me. Still. That was the third thing. The the third detail that didn't fit. "Then I suppose," I said, "we can proceed." Daniel smiled. Relief. Immediate. Melissa reached for the pen, placed it in front of me, carefully, like she had rehearsed this, like she knew exactly where it needed to go. "Just sign here." Her voice softer now. Controlled. Focused. I looked at the pen. Didn't pick it up. Not yet. Instead, I glanced at the lawyer. Just for a second. And in that second, something passed between us. Recognition. Understanding. A question. And an answer. Unspoken. But clear. He knew. Not everything. But enough. And more importantly, he knew that I knew. "Before I sign," I said, "there's something I'd like clarified." Melissa's hand froze, still holding the edge of the document. Daniel frowned slightly. "What is it?" he asked. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on the lawyer. "Clause 14, I said. Quiet. Precise. His expression changed. Just slightly. "Enough." Melissa blinked. "What clause?" she asked. Too quickly. Daniel looked confused. He hadn't read that far. Of course he hadn't. The lawyer leaned forward. Slowly. Turned the pages. Stopped. Looked at the clause. Then back at me. And this time, he didn't hide it. He understood. Fully. The room went quiet. Completely. No movement. No sound. Just that one moment. Balanced. On the edge. Melissa shifted in her seat. "What does that mean?" she asked. No one answered her. Not yet. Because now, everything had changed. And they didn't even know it. I reached for the pen. Finally. Lifted it. Held it above the paper. Paused. Just long enough. Because timing was everything. And for the first time, they were the ones waiting on me. I lowered the pen. Closer. Closer. And stopped. Right before the line. Because what I was about to say next was going to change everything.
The tip of the pen hovered just above the line. No one moved. Not Daniel, not Melissa, not even the lawyer. That was the moment everything slowed down. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but heavy. Waiting. Watching. I let the pen stay there. Close enough to finish it. Far enough to stop everything. Clause 14, I said again. Quiet. Clear. The lawyer didn't look at the paper this time. He looked at me. Directly. And then, he nodded. Just once. That was enough. Melissa's fingers tightened on the table. "What about it?" she asked. Too sharp now. The control in her voice. Slipping. I didn't answer her. Not yet. Instead, I lowered the pen slightly. Not to sign. Just enough to make them think I would. Then I stopped again. "Before I sign anything," I said, "I want to understand how Clause 14 interacts with the authorization structure." Silence. Daniel blinked. Once. Twice. He didn't understand the question. Melissa did. And that was the problem. "What do you mean?" she asked. But her voice had changed. It wasn't confident anymore. It was careful. Measured. Like she was choosing every word. "I mean," I said, "if authority is transferred, does Clause 14 remain binding?" I turned my head slightly. Just enough. Toward the lawyer. Not toward them. Never toward them. He leaned forward,
hands folded, eyes steady. "It does," he said. Simple, direct. Melissa's breath caught. Barely. But I heard it. Daniel looked between us. "What is Clause 14? He asked. There it was. The first crack. He didn't know. Of course he didn't. He hadn't read. He had trusted. That was his mistake. Melissa shifted in her seat. "It's just a standard clause," she said quickly. Too quickly. The lawyer didn't correct her. Not immediately. But he didn't agree either. That mattered. That silence? It wasn't neutral. It was pressure. I set the pen down. Slowly. Not giving it back. Just placing it on the table. "I'd prefer to hear it explained," I said. Still calm. Still steady. The lawyer glanced at Melissa. Then at Daniel. Then back at me. A decision passed across his face. Subtle. But final. "Clause 14, he said, is a protective condition tied to the original asset structure." Original. That word landed harder than anything else he had said. Melissa went still. Completely still. "And what does that mean?" I asked. He didn't hesitate this time. "It means that any transfer of authority or ownership must meet certain predefined conditions." Conditions. Daniel frowned. "What kind of conditions?" The lawyer looked at him. For the first time. Not politely. Not professionally. But directly. Conditions that were established before these documents were drafted. He said. Before. Daniel leaned back slightly. Processing. Slowly. Too slowly. Melissa didn't lean back. She leaned forward. "Those conditions are irrelevant now," she said. There it was. Not a suggestion. A statement. The lawyer didn't respond. He just looked at her. And in that look, something shifted. Because now, it wasn't just me who knew. He did too. "They're not irrelevant," I said. Quiet. Controlled. Melissa turned to me. Sharp. "Why would they apply?" "Because you didn't read. Because you assumed. Because you thought I wouldn't notice." But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. Instead, I folded my hands. Rested them on the table. "Because they were never removed," I said. Silence. Heavy. Daniel looked at Melissa. For the first time. Uncertain. "Were they?" I added. She didn't answer. Not right away. That hesitation. That was everything. The lawyer reached for the document. Turned a few pages. Stopped. Ran his finger along a line. Then looked up. "They're still active," he said. No hesitation. No softness. Just fact. Melissa's jaw tightened. "That doesn't change anything," she said. But her voice wasn't as steady now. Because it did change everything. She just didn't know how much yet. "What happens if the conditions aren't met?" I asked. The lawyer leaned back. Slightly. Choosing his words. "Then the transfer cannot be completed as written." Cannot. Not should not. Not may not. Cannot. Daniel sat up straighter. "What does that mean?" he asked. Again. Still behind. "It means," the lawyer said, "that the documents would be considered invalid under the original structure." Invalid. The word settled into the room. Heavy. Permanent. Melissa shook her head slightly. "That's not..." "It's exactly what it means," the lawyer said. For the first time. He interrupted her. Not loudly, but firmly. And that was the moment she lost control. Not completely, but enough. "You said everything was ready," Daniel said. To her. Not to me. Not to the lawyer. To her. Melissa turned to him. "I said it was structured correctly," she replied. Structured. Not valid. Not complete. Structured. Words matter, especially when you choose them carefully. I watched them. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Because now, they were unraveling on their own. And I didn't need to help. What are the conditions? Daniel asked. Finally. The right question. The lawyer looked at me. Again. Waiting. Always waiting. For me. I nodded. Just once. Permission. That was all he needed. They relate to the original ownership designation, he said. And? Daniel pressed. And the intent of the original account holder. Intent. That word mattered more than anything else. Because intent isn't something you can rewrite easily. Melissa leaned forward again. Those accounts have already been adjusted. Adjusted. Another careful word. The lawyer didn't argue. He just tilted his head slightly. As I mentioned earlier, he said, authorization changes do not override original conditions. Do not override. Clear. Final. Melissa exhaled sharply. That was the first time she lost composure. Just for a second. But it was enough. And what exactly are those conditions? Daniel asked. His voice tighter now. Less levitt. More uncertain. The lawyer paused. Looked at me. Again. Always me. Because he knew. This wasn't his decision. Not really. It was mine. I met his gaze. Held it. Then looked back at the papers. Let's say, I said slowly, that the original structure included a safeguard. Safeguard. Melissa's eyes flickered. There. That reaction. That was the confirmation. She didn't know everything. Not even close. What kind of safeguard? Daniel asked. I leaned back slightly. Gave myself space. Time. Control. The kind that prevents unauthorized consolidation. I said. The room went still. Completely still. Melissa's hand tightened around the edge of the table. Unauthorized? She repeated. Barely above a whisper. I looked at her. Finally. Directly. For example, I said, if funds were moved without meeting the required conditions, those transactions could be flagged. Flagged. The word echoed. Louder than anything else. Daniel's head turned sharply. To who? He asked. I didn't answer. Because he already knew. He just didn't want to say it. The lawyer cleared his throat. Certain structures include automatic review triggers, he said. Careful. Professional. But clear. And if those triggers are activated, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Because now, they understood. At least part of it. Melissa sat back. Slowly. Her expression had changed. Not confident anymore. Not controlled. Now, she was calculating. Recalculating. Trying to figure out what she had missed.
What happens if I don't sign? I asked it quietly, but it landed hard. Heavier than anything else in that room. I turned my head slightly. Looked at her. Held it there. Complicate what? I asked. Silence. A full second. 2. That was all it took. Because now, they were the ones without a script. Daniel leaned forward. Elena, Mom, he corrected quickly. This is just a formality. Formality. I nodded. Slow. Then it shouldn't matter if I take a day, I said. That hit him. Direct. Because it did matter. More than he wanted to admit. It's better to handle it now, he said. Better. Not necessary. Better. Melissa stepped in. This has already been scheduled, she said. Delays could create complications. There it was again. Complications. I tilted my head slightly. Financial ones? I asked. Her lips parted. Just slightly. She hadn't expected that. Daniel looked at her.
then back at me. "What do you mean?" he asked. I didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, I tapped the paper. Once. Soft. "Timing seems very important to you," I said. No one responded. But the silence said everything. I leaned back, let the chair take my weight, studied them. Both of them. Not as family. Not anymore. As people. People who had built something. Planned something. And now, we're trying to finish it. Too quickly. That was the mistake. Always the same mistake. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked. Daniel frowned. "Nothing," he said. Too quickly. Melissa didn't speak. That was the difference between them. He reacted. She calculated. I watched her instead. "Tomorrow is the 15th, I said. Quiet. Measured. Her eyes flickered. Just once. But that was enough. Because now, it was confirmed. "It's just a date," Daniel said. I nodded. "Of course." Then I looked at the lawyer. "Is it just a date?" He didn't answer immediately. He never did. That was why I trusted him more than them. Because he understood. Silence was information. "Not necessarily," he said finally. Melissa turned sharply. "What does that mean?" But her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was tight. Controlled. Holding something back. Fear. The lawyer folded his hands. Looked at the documents. Then at me. "Certain structures include scheduled reviews," he said. Reviews. A softer word. Safer. But not harmless. "And if those reviews occur without proper alignment," he added. He didn't finish. Again. He didn't need to. Daniel looked between us. Confusion building. "What review?" he asked. No one answered him. Because the question wasn't for him. Not really. I picked up the pen again. Turned it slowly between my fingers. Let the silence stretch. Longer than it should have. Long enough to make them uncomfortable. Because discomfort makes people reveal things. Melissa leaned forward. "We don't need to overcomplicate this," she said. Her voice softer now. Controlled. Careful. "We just need your signature." Just. That word again. Always minimizing. Always simplifying. I smiled. Just slightly. "Do we?" I asked. That stopped her. Completely. Because now, the balance had shifted. And she felt it. Daniel exhaled. Louder this time. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked. There it was. The first real question. Not rehearsed. Not controlled. Real. I looked at him. Really looked. And for a moment, I saw the boy again. The one who didn't understand. The one who trusted too easily. But that moment passed. Because the man sitting in front of me had made his choice. Long before this room. "What's going on?" I said. "Is that I'm reading what I'm signing." Simple. Clear. Unavoidable. Melissa shifted in her seat. "That's what we're doing," she said. "No. That's what you thought I wouldn't do." I didn't say it. I didn't need to. I reached forward. Turned the document slightly. Aligned it. Perfectly. Like my husband used to do. Small detail, but deliberate. "Let's walk through this," I said. The lawyer nodded. Immediately. That was new. He wasn't just observing anymore. He was with me. Fully. "Power of attorney," I said. Tapped the page. "This gives Daniel full control." "Yes," the lawyer said. Immediately. "Yes." I nodded. "Then it shouldn't matter if I take a day," I said. That hit him. Direct. Because it did matter. More than he wanted to admit. "It's better to handle it now," he said. Better. Not necessary. Better. Melissa stepped in. "This has already been scheduled," she said. "Delays could create complications." There it was again. Complications. I tilted my head slightly. "Financial ones?" I asked. Her lips parted. Just slightly. She hadn't expected that. Daniel looked at her, then back at me. "What do you mean?" he asked. I didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, I tapped the paper. Once. Soft. "Timing seems very important to you," I said. No one responded. But the silence said everything. I leaned back. Let the chair take my weight. Studied them. Both of them. Not as family. Not anymore. As people. People who had built something. Planned something. And now, we're trying to finish it. Too quickly. That was the mistake. Always the same mistake. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked. Daniel frowned. "Nothing," he said. Too quickly. Melissa didn't speak. That was the difference between them. He reacted. He reacted. She calculated. I watched her instead. "Tomorrow is the 15th, I said. Quiet. Measured. Her eyes flickered. Just once. But that was enough. Because now, it was confirmed. "It's just a date," Daniel said. I nodded. "Of course." Then I looked at the lawyer. "Is it just a date?" He didn't answer immediately. He never did. That was why I trusted him more than them. Because he understood. Silence was information. "Not necessarily," he said finally. Melissa turned sharply. "What does that mean?" But her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was tight. Controlled. Holding something back. Fear. The lawyer folded his hands. Looked at the documents. Then at me. "Certain structures include scheduled reviews," he said. Reviews. A softer word. Safer. But not harmless. "And if those reviews occur without proper alignment," he added. He didn't finish. Again. He didn't need to. Daniel looked between us. Confusion building. "What review?" he asked. No one answered him. Because the question wasn't for him. Not really. I picked up the pen again. Turned it slowly between my fingers. Let the silence stretch. Longer than it should have. Long enough to make them uncomfortable. Because discomfort makes people reveal things. Melissa leaned forward. "We don't need to overcomplicate this," she said. Her voice softer now. Controlled. Careful. "We just need your signature." Just. That word again. Always minimizing. Always simplifying. I smiled. Just slightly. "Do we?" I asked. That stopped her. Completely. Because now, the balance had shifted. And she felt it. Daniel exhaled. Louder this time. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked. There it was. The first real question. Not rehearsed. Not controlled. Real. I looked at him. Really looked. And for a moment, I saw the boy again. The one who didn't understand. The one who trusted too easily. But that moment passed. Because the man sitting in front of me had made his choice. Long before this room. "What's going on?" I said. "Is that I'm reading what I'm signing." Simple. Clear. The pen touched the paper, and for a fraction of a second, I let it stay there, not moving, not signing, just resting. That was the moment, the one they had been waiting for, the one they thought they controlled. "Go ahead, Mom," Daniel said. His voice was tight now, not confident, not calm, tight. Melissa didn't speak. She leaned forward, just slightly, her eyes fixed on the pen. Not on me, never on me. That was the difference. Daniel still looked at me like I was part of this. Melissa was already counting the result. I could feel it, the pressure. Not from the room, from them, from the silence they were trying to hold together, and from the clock they couldn't stop. Tomorrow, the 15th. Everything was tied to it. Everything. That was the truth they couldn't hide anymore. I lifted the pen, just a fraction, enough to break the illusion, and leaned back, slowly. "I'm thinking," I said. 3 words. That was all it took. Melissa exhaled sharply. "Thinking," she repeated, like the word itself was inconvenient, like time was something I wasn't supposed to take. "Yes," I said, calm, controlled, thinking. Daniel ran a hand over his face. "Mom, this isn't complicated," he said. "It is if I don't understand it," I replied. That stopped him. Again. Because now, he couldn't pretend this was simple anymore. I looked down at the documents, then at the lawyer, then back at them. "You said everything here was ready," I said. Melissa nodded. "Yes." Too fast. "You said it was simple," I continued. "Yes." Still too fast. "And you said it was in my best interest." A pause. This time, longer. "Yes," she said. But now, it didn't sound the same. I leaned forward, placed the pen on the table, not near the paper, not within reach, on my side. That was deliberate. That was control. "Then explain something to me," I said. Silence. Daniel shifted in his seat. Melissa didn't. She stayed still. Too still. "Why does this have to be done today?" I asked. No one answered. Not immediately. Because that question wasn't in their script. "It doesn't have to," Daniel said finally. But even he didn't believe it. I tilted my head slightly. "Then we can wait." Simple. Clean. Logical. And impossible for them. Melissa leaned forward, this time more sharply. "No," she said, then caught herself. "We just prefer not to delay." Prefer. That word again. Always softer than the truth. I nodded. "Why?" She didn't answer. Not right away. Her eyes flicked toward the lawyer, then back to me, then to Daniel, looking for something. Support. Confirmation. An opening. She didn't find one. Daniel cleared his throat. "There are deadlines." Deadlines. There it was. Closer now. Closer to the truth. "What deadlines?" I asked. Silence. Again. Because now, they were cornered by their own language. I leaned back again. Let the silence stretch. Let it press. Because pressure forces mistakes. Melissa finally spoke. "There are financial structures that need to be aligned before the review cycle," she said. Too precise. Too rehearsed. But now, it was exposed. Review cycle. The lawyer didn't interrupt. But I saw it. The slight shift in his posture. The recognition. She had said too much. "Review cycle," I repeated. Soft. Slow. "And when is that?" No answer. Daniel looked at her. Now he was the one searching. Because now, he realized something. He didn't know everything either. "Tomorrow," I said. Not a question. A statement. Melissa's eyes snapped to mine. That was it. That was the moment. Because now, she knew I knew. "It's just a standard process," she said. But her voice wasn't steady anymore. "It's not," I said. Quiet. Controlled. Final. And for the first time, she didn't push back immediately. Because she couldn't. Daniel leaned forward. "What happens tomorrow?" Now, he was asking the right question. Too late. But still, the right one. I didn't answer him. Not directly. Instead, I looked at the lawyer. He met my gaze. Understood. And then, he spoke. "Scheduled review processes can trigger full audits if inconsistencies are detected," he said. Audits. The word landed hard. Daniel blinked. "Audit?" he repeated. Melissa didn't. She went still. Again. But this time, it wasn't calculation. It was realization. Inconsistencies. Daniel asked. The lawyer didn't rush. He never did. Unauthorized access changes. Structured transfers. Irregular authorization patterns. He said. Each word. A piece. Each piece. A problem. Daniel turned to Melissa. What is he talking about? There it was. The crack. The fracture. The beginning of collapse. It's nothing, she said. But now, it sounded like exactly what it was. Something. Big. I leaned forward. Just enough. $80,000. Silence. Total. Complete. Melissa's face changed. Not much. But enough. Daniel froze. What? He said. One word. And everything shifted. I didn't look at him. I looked at her. Structure transfers. Same tone. Same control. 6 weeks ago. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Daniel turned fully toward her now. What is she talking about? His voice sharper. Or urgent. Or real. Melissa swallowed. You don't understand, she said. But she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to him. Trying to hold something together. Too late. Then explain it. That was new. Demand. Not agreement. I picked up the pen again. Slowly. Turned it between my fingers. Watched them. As everything unraveled. Exactly the way it was always going to. Tomorrow. I said quietly. Those transactions get reviewed. No one interrupted. Because now, they were listening. And if they don't align with the original structure, I continued. I didn't finish. I didn't need to. Because now, they knew. At least enough. Daniel looked at the documents. Then at Melissa. Then back at me. What happens? His voice wasn't steady anymore. I met his eyes. For the first time in a long time. And I didn't soften it. Not even a little. They don't just reverse. I said. A pause. Then, they expose everything. Melissa stood up. Too fast. The chair scraped against the floor. Sharp. Loud. Breaking the silence. That's not. She started. But she didn't finish. Because now, she wasn't in control of the story anymore. The lawyer didn't move. Didn't speak. But his presence had shifted completely. He wasn't neutral. Not anymore. Daniel stood too. Slower. More uncertain. What did you do? He asked her. There it was. The question he should have asked weeks ago. I watched them. Didn't intervene. Didn't correct. Because now, this wasn't about me anymore. Not in the way they thought. Melissa shook her head. You don't understand how this works. But now, she was the one who didn't understand. I stood. Finally. Slow. Controlled. Took the documents. Stacked them neatly. Placed them back on the table. Exactly aligned. Just like my husband used to do. Then I picked up the pen again. One last time. Held it above the paper. And smiled. Because now, the decision wasn't about signing. It never was. It was about Hyatt. And tomorrow was going to take that choice away from all of us. I lowered the pen. And stopped.
The pen never touched the paper. Not really. Because the moment they thought I was about to sign was the moment I decided to end it. I'm not signing this. I said it calmly. No raised voice, no hesitation, just final. The The silence that followed wasn't confusion, it was collapse. Immediate. Daniel froze where he stood, half turned toward Melissa, half turned toward me. Like he didn't know which reality to choose. Melissa didn't freeze. She reacted. Sharp. Fast. "You don't understand what you're doing," she said. No softness left. No performance. Just pressure. I looked at her. Steady. I understand exactly what I'm doing. That was the truth. And that was the difference. Daniel stepped forward. "Mom, if this is about the money..." "It is," I said, cutting him off. Clean. Simple. And it isn't. That stopped him. Because now, he didn't know where to stand. I placed the pen down, deliberately, centered, between us. Then I turned the first document toward myself. Not to sign, to read. Out loud. "Power of attorney," I said. "Grants full financial control." I flipped the page. "Property transfer. Moves ownership." Another page. "Account consolidation. Reorganizes funds." I looked up. At both of them. This isn't simplification. It's removal. Melissa's jaw tightened. "That's not what this is," she said. I didn't respond to her. Not directly. Instead, I turned to the lawyer. "Would you like to explain Clause 14? I asked. He didn't hesitate this time. Because now, there was nothing left to protect. Clause 14, he said, is a safeguard embedded in the original asset structure. Original. Not new. Not recent. Original. I nodded. Set by my husband, I added. That was the first time I said it out loud, and it changed the room. Immediately. Daniel blinked. "What?" he said. "He knew," I continued. Still calm, still controlled. He knew that authority could be transferred. He knew access could be added. He knew things could be adjusted. I looked at Melissa, held it. He just made sure they couldn't be stolen. Silence. Heavy. Permanent. Clause 14 ties every account, I said, to original intent. The lawyer nodded, confirming. Meaning, I continued, that any change, any transfer, any consolidation must align with that intent. I let the words settle. Then, and if it doesn't, the lawyer finished it. It triggers a full review and reversal. Daniel looked between us, lost, completely. You're saying this doesn't go through? He asked. No, I said. I'm saying it already didn't. That hit him. Hard. Because now, he realized something. This wasn't about stopping a future action. It was about something that had already happened. I reached into my purse, took out the bank documents, placed them on the table, neatly, aligned. $80,000, I said. Transferred, structured, unauthorized. Each word landed, one by one. Daniel turned to Melissa, slow, careful. What is she talking about? His voice wasn't steady anymore. Melissa didn't answer, not immediately, because now there was no version of this that worked. You added access, I said, still looking at her. You moved money. You prepared documents to transfer everything else. And you timed it. I paused, just long enough for tomorrow. The room went completely still, because now everything was on the table. Why tomorrow? He asked. To her, not to me, not to the lawyer, to her. I answered instead. Because Clause 14 triggers unscheduled review cycles. The lawyer nodded. Correct. And tomorrow, I continued, every account tied to the structure is reviewed. Every transfer, every authorization, every inconsistency. Daniel's face changed. Understanding. Too late.
But if we sign today, he started. Then it would look aligned, I said, finishing it for him. That was the plan. Melissa stood up. Again. But this time, she didn't try to control it. This is not how it works, she said. But her voice wasn't convincing anymore, not even to herself. I stood too, slow, measured, facing her. It is exactly how it works, I said. And you would have known that if you hadn't read past the first page. That landed, because it was true, and she knew it. You said you handled everything, Daniel said. His voice now was sharp, directed, accusing. Melissa shook her head. You don't understand the structure. No, I said. You didn't. Silence. Again. But this time, different. Because now, they weren't waiting. They were exposed. I gathered the documents, stacked them, perfectly, then slid them back across the table. Not to sign, to return. I'm not signing anything, I said, because I don't need to. I paused. Then, tomorrow we'll handle the rest. Daniel stared at me. What does that mean? I looked at him. Really looked. For the last time. It means, I said, that every transaction you didn't understand, every form you rushed, every detail you ignored, gets reviewed. And when it does, I let the silence finish it. Because he already knew. Melissa didn't speak anymore. She just stood there, still, calculating. But now, there was nothing left to calculate. I picked up my purse, turned toward the door, then stopped. Just once. Your father built this carefully, I said, without turning around. He didn't trust systems. He trusted structure. And he made sure. I paused. That structure would outlast intentions. I opened the door, stepped out, didn't look back. The hallway was quiet, clean, neutral, like nothing had happened. But everything had. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, waited, hand steady, breath even. Behind me, the office door didn't open. No one followed. That told me everything. The elevator door slid open. I stepped inside, turned, faced forward, and as the doors closed, I realized something. Not about them, not about the money, not even about the house, about value. Because the truth was, I had never lost mine. They just never understood it.